scared to say that I'm insecure, but you're too scared to say that you want him more. Say what's on your mind, don't hold it back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind, your mind. Girl, don't call my phone up, I know where you been. You like to get messy when you out with your friends. I'm not scared to say that I'm insecure, but you're too scared to say that you want him more. Say what's on your mind, don't hold it back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind, your mind. Girl, don't call my phone up, I know where you been. You like to get messy when you out with your friends. I'm not scared to say that I'm insecure, but you're too scared to say that you want him more. Say what's on your mind, don't hold it back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind, don't hold me back. Say what's on your mind.
Hello. Hello, everyone. May I request everyone to please find your table and sit. Hello, everyone. Please. We are starting in a moment. So, the tables are divided into 5 categories. It starts from pre-recruitment to recruitment to deployment, employment, and return. So, please find your name and sit. So, we'll come back to table later, but now this is time to start the day. Yeah. So, I'm very glad to welcome you all to the second day of Global Forum for Responsible Recruitment. Very important day. And as you may have realized, the forum was divided into 2 days. And first day was about the issues, problems, challenges. And now this is the day of resilience, the solution, the support, the measures. So welcome to the second day. we'll be having very interesting agenda for today, and I think you will really like. And this won't be boring. It's very entertaining, very enjoying. So we have designed and we have uh, two workshops to do today. We'll start very quickly with some opening address, and then we'll go to a workshop around climate change and migration, and followed by some very interesting dialogues about tools and pilot projects, following by shipping. We'll look at seafarers and responsible recruitment. Then we'll have a time to uh, look into responsible recruitment on the ground, some very interesting case studies, and followed by we'll go into more deeper, more interesting topic. We'll be looking at multinational compliances and jurisdictions, and then we'll have another workshop, very interesting, very important, and everyone will find that workshop is something you really want to understand. It's about AI and responsible recruitment. So the day is full. I don't want to spend lots of time in. I don't want to take your lots of time in all this intro part. So uh, I have with me for a person I really like, and I have always heard him with his words of wisdom, to be very honest. We have Mr. Adrian Pereira from North South Initiative. He's Executive Director of NSI, and he has been engaging on migration issues since long time. We all know him, I think, and I don't need to introduce you to you. He has been working with number of issues around migration. So let me welcome Mr. Adrian. Adrian, where are you? Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adrian Pereira. I wish I was William Goyce, but I'm not. So thanks for giving me the space. I have two declarations to make. Number one, I wear two hats. I'm with North-South Initiative, and I'm also with the International Movement of Catholic Students and Graduates. So it's a 100-year-old organization. I'm not 100 years old, but we bring together the analysis of a movement that has done social justice globally. And I may make a few Catholic jokes here and there. So looking back at yesterday's presentation, I think the vision and direction is really cool. Data-driven to reform the whole recruitment sector. But in the Catholic world, we have this joke of being saved, right? So in the kitchen, for example, you can smell the food that is being cooked, so it smells very good. So that so-called represents your salvation. But the food hasn't been served. You don't know what is coming out yet. And I think that is where it's important we take stock and maybe press the brakes a bit to look back at the ethical questions that arise. And I think as not just as a Catholic, I'm also on some of the ethics committees of some research universities, and really there's a lot of unanswered ethical questions. So, and of course, when you talk about data, all these questions come out. When we talk about money, a lot of ethical questions come out. So I think some of the critique that will bring us hope, that will give us hope. Firstly, I think when we talk about recruitment, we should remember it's the whole cycle. The obsession and the fetish, unfortunately, has been focused on recruitment fees. And I think that is a fatal mistake because we have not looked at return and reintegration. It was mentioned a bit yesterday, but you have to go deeper because there's a lot of unpaid termination or end of work benefits that have been withheld. And I can just imagine these numbers could be in the billions. And don't forget, when people return and reintegrate, there's also restitution to wrongs that I've done and also rehabilitation for those who are disabled from accidents. I think it's also important that we realize, and I think the wisdom is already in the room, that one size won't fit all. We are kind of trying to break it down into corridors, but from a decolonizing lens, go back to the grassroots to look at what data that exists. Just now one of my counterpart was advising us about how wide and broad the different data collections are. And if you really want to collect data, how do you standardize it from day one? Maybe not standardize, but make sure the attributes are the correct ones. Yeah. The second critique is who is in the room. Okay, who is not in the room? I know there are some migrant representatives here, former migrants also, but you know the trends are changing so fast. At the micro level, macro level, how are we really going to cope, even if you collect the data? And personally, I've had a kind of bitter experience with data and promises. And this is fields I directly worked in. Number one is GMO, the promise that GMO will solve hunger. Number two is the climate change solutions. You have come up with solutions, you have created even bigger problems. And last but not least is my work with the platform workers. The data is there. The data is in the platform. It's a black box that controls workers' life. It's not that the companies cannot do the right thing. So I'm afraid that we may fall into the same trap again. We have to be a bit careful. The third point is, in whose best interests are we talking about? I saw our friends quite brutal comment about the program, Mr. A.H., Mr. Andy, you can go and read it. He asked about, I think, the questions on accountability of and equity of resource usage. Now, many of us on the ground, we are given 2 to 3 peanuts to solve world problems. And when it comes to data collection, we know a huge amount of money is going. I'm actually a bit scared to ask Amazon how much they have actually invested. But this is my challenge. For every dollar that you put into your data collection engine or process, please match the dollar to a solution. Okay, you have to walk the talk. Otherwise, we'll fall back into the same mistakes of the gig work, the platform work, where so much data is collected, but not used in the best interest of workers. Yeah. I think it's important that we check ourselves whether migrant committees were formed in your project design. We have experimented a few times with migrant committees, either in research or projects, and it's very useful. I can tell you there's so many blind spots that we have not addressed. And the migrant committees, circles, I think someone was using the term circles, will give you a lot of amazing insight. And actually, I attribute 101% of my success to the migrant community. The insights, I'm telling you, you can go and do your 5 PhDs. You will not match any of the wisdom, the local wisdom coming from migrants. Yeah. And also in the best interest. So it's amazing the depth of data you all envision to collect. But the recruitment problem involves organized crime. It involves human resource managers who are working with them to siphon unpaid recruitment fees. And I was working, not really working, I joined UNDP's FAST program. How many of you have heard of it? Who's UNDP? Anyone here? It's Finance Against Slavery. And it's a simple 3 to 4 line algorithm to trace where the money is going. Simple. Bankers are using it. Financiers are using it. So then again, in the world of research, and I use a bit of my research hat, how much data do you really need to solve a problem like this? 3 lines, simple lines. It'll trace, some unscrupulous money flow, and it's just a few lines of code. So things are already there. It can be done. Do we really need this huge mammoth to solve our problems? Yeah. My second last point is on intersectionality. I'm glad that speakers here raised gender, domestic workers, women workers, workers in situations of war. Imagine your bombs falling on your head and they expect you to go to work. I think even if there's heavy rain, I'll call my boss and say, I want to work from home. This is bombs, you know. And don't forget the LGBT friends, they're also workers, including migrant workers. When I raised this at the ASEAN meeting, the Malaysian government said, sorry, Adrian, we don't recruit LGBT workers. My God, how on earth do they know? And of course, don't forget our disability workers with disabilities and neurodiverse workers. I think they need to be in the room. And when it comes to climate change or climate disasters, most of the discourse is on the country, the push factor, right? But I think we as Malaysians, the migrants here are facing the direct impact, whether it's heat stress, floods, and landslides. When the big flood that happened 3 years ago, Malaysians were rescued in 48 hours. How would you feel if you're rescued in 48 hours, right? You'll call your government, hey, come and save me. The migrants were rescued after 10 days. 10 days. And these are supply chain companies with big hostels. So let's not forget to mitigate the problems here. Yeah? Last but not least is when it comes to GPs, right? Governments are supposed to, to give the protection, and the private sector and governments to do, private sector to respect, and governments and private sector for remedies. Now, where's the government in the room, right? I hope that those dialogues can take place. I have to rely on international meetings to meet my government officials. I know it's embarrassing, but does that mean that you should organize more global programs so I can meet my government friends? So last but not least, I think there's some good news. Some of the industries are already talking about living wage. I think some of them are in this room. Congratulations, I'm very proud actually to hear that. And I'm actually in the middle of doing my SAI exam update. It's amazing, the definitions are so amazing. And I'm telling you, not that I have any personal interests or undeclared interests with SAI, but looking at the evolution of the standards, the inclusion, I think that's already 80% of your solution, if you do it right. I'm not saying don't modify the wheel, but definitely don't reinvent the wheel, because when you reinvent the wheel, more and more money is being wasted. So with that, I shall end with one conflict of interest I would like to declare. So there's two reasons why I joined this program. One is to impress my donor. Some of my donors are here. And number two, everyone is claiming that they have the best solutions. And, I work with many of you here, and I was scratching my head. Is it really true? So I've taken up, it's not really self-interest, like I'm doing your homework to check what are the good practices and not so good practices in your remediation tools. And I'm glad most of the companies have joined us. Some of the tools have also joined us. And this is the challenge to us, to go beyond your NDAs, to go beyond your competition. Let's be honest. I mean, the conversation yesterday was very honest, but I think we can go a bit honest. It's my Catholic voice speaking, but be honest, and we want to solve the migrants' problems, not your personal and your career problems. That's your business. You can do that, but the heart of the center should be the migrants. So please, let's look at what tools work, what doesn't work. I know hundreds of millions used to develop tools. Some of your tools really don't work. They suck, in fact. But those that work, please come together. Let's compare notes. Thank you, and sorry if I offended anyone. Thank you. That's my job, actually, to offend people. Thanks.
Thank you, Adrian. So now we're closing off the online audience, and we'll just be in this room together. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to send you this short message today. First, as a proud patron of the Institute for Human Rights in Business, and second, because your theme, Building Resilience in an Era of Global Disruption, couldn't be more timely. Your first session explored the growing impact of the climate and nature crisis on workers and businesses. Without adequate protection from climate shocks, workers may suffer illness and injury, lose their livelihoods, or, in the most severe cases, lose their lives. Many may be forced out of sectors altogether, undermining the long-term resilience of supply chains. I have deep concerns for these workers in 2026. They'll face a convergence of pressures: a rapidly warming world, fertilizer shortages, higher energy costs, the consequences of deep cuts to overseas aid, and the prospect of a strong El Nino event. All of this points to an urgent need for systems change in how we manage climate risks within supply chains. Businesses already factor fluctuating costs, including energy, transport, compliance, and other externalities, into the pricing of products. In the same way, we believe it's now time for businesses to factor the protection of climate-exposed workers into the real cost of production itself. As you move into your second session on the specific risks and opportunities ahead, I would encourage you to reflect on this in the context of your own supply chains. Fortunately, practical solutions already exist. One organization pioneering this work is SEWA, the Self-Employed Women's Association in Ahmedabad in India, which represents 3.8 million women working in the informal sector. SEWA has developed a range of parametric insurance products for its members. 50,000 members participated in 2024. This grew to 250,000 members in 2025, and I believe they're expecting that it could reach 1 million this year, 2026. These mechanisms ensure that workers are not forced to choose between income and personal safety during extreme climate events. When dangerous heat, flooding, or crop loss occur, rapid payments out provide temporary income so that workers can stop work, remain at home, or absorb temporary losses without losing their livelihoods. And I had the opportunity, when I was visiting SEWA earlier this year, to see the joy, particularly in the women who carry big loads on their heads, the poorest women in the city. And they had got this insurance because they couldn't work during about 4 or 5 hours on certain days. And about 4 weeks later, the payment came in. And their joy and their sense of understanding the insurance was incredible. So large companies like Primark are already supporting these initiatives because they recognize that resilient workforce is necessary for a resilient supply chain. In Primark's case, it's the fact that SEWA has 80,000 cotton farmers that supply to them. Climate shocks disrupt production, reduce labor availability, and increase vulnerability throughout supply chains. Investing in rapid response mechanisms is therefore a necessary cost of doing business in a climate-disrupted world. Not as philanthropy or as corporate social responsibility, but as a core business responsibility and an essential investment in supply chain resilience. So as you continue your discussions today, I'd encourage you to consider what this approach might look like in your own supply chains. If we're serious about building resilience in an era of global disruption, then we must ensure that the workers on whom our supply chains depend are equipped to withstand the disruptions that the climate and nature crisis will necessarily bring. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you have a very good meeting. Thank you very much for listening.
Hi, everyone. We're going to start in about a minute. So if you could please take a seat. And come back to the room. Our panelists are ready. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so welcome back and welcome back to our online audience. Thank you for joining us. Our next session is on going to be for the next 45 minutes. Just a reminder that questions are taken via the forum's dedicated platform or the live stream on IHRB's LinkedIn and YouTube channel. So please post any questions there. So I'd like to invite the next panel for the session on tools, pilots, and accountability in responsible recruitment. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, it's so weird seeing myself on that screen. Really great to be here. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can find a seat so that we can get started. We have three great speakers with me here today, and we have about 45 minutes. So yeah, let's get started. Welcome to this session, which we'll be looking at a question that is very close to my heart, that is becoming increasingly central in the responsible recruitment space, of course. So how do we move from commitments, which I think we've seen a lot of over the last couple of years, to implementation? And, you know, across businesses, across supply chains, there is now much wider recognition of the importance of responsible recruitment. I think it's maybe my third forum joining here over the last sort of 7, 8 years in this space. And I think we've definitely come quite far. But there is still, as many of us in the room know, there is still a lot going from adopting the right principles to actual implementation. And the test is really whether those principles are being translated into day-to-day practices in ways that are credible, practical, and responsive to actual worker risks. I think that's something that we're definitely seeing here in Malaysia, where I'm based since 2.5 years. We see that in the everyday of the struggles and challenges that workers are facing here when it comes to recruitment issues and employment issues as well. So today we're fortunate enough to have 3 organizations that approach this challenge from different but complementary angles. So we have Stronger Together with Jantine, who focuses on practical capacity building, guidance, benchmarking, supplier engagement through tools such as the Stronger Together 360 platform. We have RBA and Chu, who through its responsible recruitment and diligence work brings experience on systems, supplier implementation, recruitment fee due diligence, broader market alignments. And then finally, Verite and Hubert brings a worker-centered and risk-focused lens, including tools, guidance on ethical recruitment, forced labor risk, grievance mechanisms, and remediation. So what I was hoping that we can unpack in this discussion are really 3 key things. So first, what is actually helping companies make progress in practice, where implementation still breaks down, and what is needed if current approaches are to deliver not just better systems on paper, but better outcomes for workers and at scale, of course. We will begin the session with short opening remarks from each speaker. So we'll give them about 5 to 7 minutes each and then move into a discussion. And I think we'll start with Jantine from Stronger Together. So Jantine, without losing more time, the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthias, and thank you for inviting me here. I'll be excited to share with you. I think my clicker might not be working. Oh, yeah. Great. There we are. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the tools that our organization has developed and which was introduced in the beginning of this year. But it wasn't just launched this year, it was actually something that was developed a long time ago. Development started in 2017 already. And what this new tool is, the 360, is a merger of two older tools, bringing that together in one tool that is a lot more comprehensive and is being used by many businesses already, about 4,000 at the moment. Our organization looks at systemic change and really contributes to that by working with businesses in a whole variety of ways. But we work very operationally with them as well in terms of implementation, and this tool is an example of that. It's a tool that helps businesses prevent labor exploitation and embed responsible recruitment and fair work, and that's both across operations and supply chains. Now, the tool is globally applicable and sector neutral and aligned to international standards. It is its functionality is very much self-assessment, so it provides a range of questions for businesses to identify where they are at in their journey when it comes to implementing responsible recruitment and fair work, and it gives them the opportunity to benchmark themselves against peers in an anonymous way. It's not just the what. It's not just asking them in a compliance-based way, this is what you need to have in place. It also provides them with a lot of guidance, expert guidance throughout. So it gives them the how. And we feel that is something that is always very important when we introduce tools. It gives the functionality for those who wish to use that functionality to not only use the tool for themselves to figure out where they are at in their journey, but there is an option as well to have a subscription to connect with business partners. So that means that, for example, a food business can connect to their labor providers and mutually they can share the reports on how they are doing, or equally they can do that upwards to the clients that they provide to. Now, they also have the opportunity then to pull off an action plan at the end of it and prioritize the actions that they want to take on the back of the results of the self-assessment. And as I say, report back then to clients and colleagues as they please. Maybe one thing to add here, the reason, and this is actually on the back of what Adrian said this morning in his opening speech, where he referred to, there are so many tools out there. Some of them work and some of them don't. And he said it a bit harsher, but I thought that is a very true point. And today, the tool I'm talking about, I feel, is one that is working, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But it came off the back, the reason that it came about was that we introduced something that wasn't working. And I think it's great to talk about all the good things that we have in place, but it's also important at forums like this to talk about the things that don't work. And so, as a bit of context, we introduced back in 2018 Clearview, which is like Iris, a labor provider certification scheme, very robust and very good. So there's nothing wrong with the methodology as such, and it is still being used. But what we found during the process, the years of developing that, was that the market wasn't ready for it. And that although there was such a robust methodology, nobody was ready to use it because capacity building was needed in the very first place. And that's why we introduced a self-assessment, a capacity building tool, which has now evolved into the 360. And as I say, Clearview is still there. It is being used in the States, but at that time, that was something that failed to be taken up. Right. How is the 360 being used? Very briefly here, it is used for effective human rights due diligence. As I said, it goes across responsible recruitment, but also fair work. It helps businesses also very much with the recruitment chain due diligence. So as I said, it is for both for the top of the supply chain, their suppliers, and then linking up with their recruiters and labor providers, and can also involve umbrella companies. And it enables cross-function collaboration, something that we've spoken about over the last 2 days. So important that we approach this not only in sustainability teams, but that we bring it across the organization into purchasing practices teams, for example, as well. Why? Well, I don't have to tell you the why of embedding responsible recruitment, but just to touch here on what this does. It's really to provide that opportunity of a stepping stone for businesses to show their commitment and to show their progress to those that they work with. It's not a tool that they do one time and that's it. It's something that they can do again and again. It will give them a progress score and give them, you know, the detail behind that. And that will be asked for example, some of the retailers that we work with will ask their strategic suppliers to provide a report of that moment in time. And after 6 months, they will ask for the next report. Not because they think everything is perfect by the next meeting, but so somebody can show, a supplier can show what progress they have made. Right, well, I'll leave this up so you can all read it yourself, but I just wanted to give a few examples of how the tool is being used and by whom it's being used. It's a variety of actors, as I said. So, for example, a large part of the UK supermarkets is using the tool, and one of those I've pulled out. They've just publicized their modern slavery statement for this year yesterday, and in there is this quote, which reflects that they use the 360 tool, previously RRT, to assess and improve their own recruitment processes. So they really specifically use that for themselves as a big supermarket. They're now looking to roll that out to their suppliers as well. Then another example, a labor provider, which has offices both in the UK, but also has offices and recruits from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Bulgaria. They use it to create consistency across their team. So they use the tool to build capacity across their in-country teams. And then finally, another one, another level in the supply chain, a food manufacturer uses it by making those connections. They don't only use it for their own operations, they very much use it for their recruitment chain and ask all their labor providers to complete this, do the self-assessment and have built that into their audit systems as well. So the companies will be asked to complete it, that will be given to the auditors and they then check of that, verify if that information is indeed correct. So different ways of usage across the board. That's where I'll leave it.
Thank you so much, Jantine. That's really interesting to hear about the 360 tool. I think that's something that we'll come back to as well and ask a few questions a little bit later. But yeah, we will move on next to Shu from RBA, who will discuss their initiatives and their platforms from RBA.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shu. Thanks for the introduction. And it's so great. Actually, we have a lot of initiative here. And let me just briefly walk you through like what is RBA's Responsible Recruitment Program. And actually, many of you might be familiar because we've been starting the program since 2017. I won't go to detail of what we've done previously, but I do want to share with you actually over the past years, these programs actually gave us some lesson learned. Hence, actually, when we launched a new program we call RRP 2.0 last year in November, we actually adjust and make changes according to these lessons learned. But obviously, I think why we all are sitting here is the ethical recruitment market is not there yet. That's why all of us here are using tools, initiative to see how to create the market. So I think few lessons learned that I do want to share with you from our program previously are there is a gap still, like how to move the supplier employer toward the ethical recruitment. A lot of the the big clients, they are buy-in, but a lot of the employer on the ground is not there yet. So a lot of the awareness raising and capacity building program are still needed on the ground to the language, to the culture, to the local recruitment system that they understand. I think this is the first one we definitely learn. There need to be economic incentive for recruitment agency. I think a lot of the recruitment agency are sitting here that I see people are nodding the head. How to create really incentive, a business case for recruitment agencies. I think the third one, the hybrid module, I think that is still something we know is one of the biggest challenge we see in RBA's case. We see a lot of recruitment agency, they will be employers pays for RBA members, but then for those industry that are not asking for employers pay, they still charge. And this still remain happening in most of the country. The next one is I would say overlapping system of certification, which I think is good. We have IRIS, SAI here, we have Stronger Together, we have the ethical marketplace here, because I think a lot of the recruitment agency are confusing, like, which one should I go for? So I think I will mention what is our key actually elements is to really align it and continuously speaking with all the stakeholder who is working on the same initiative. I think the very important next two pieces is there is a strong need on engaging with both sending country and destination country. So I would say RBA's work now really has a very strong focus on working closely with our public policy team to engage with government in sending country. And the last one, I think everyone will be also familiar is a continuous stakeholder engagement and collaboration, which I think among them worker-centric is a very important piece. Because if we are talking about responsible recruitment, whether it's working, ultimately is we want to see a worker have a journey from sending country to destination country that is safe, fair, without exploitation. So I think these are just a few lessons learned I would like to share with everyone that how we are shaping our program now. As you can see from the slides, there are a few key elements that is echoing actually from our lesson learned. So I think we are focusing really on addressing forced labor for the recruitment program. We want to drive more demands from our members and their suppliers by deploying different type of tools that we want to ensure the supplier are able to conduct due diligence on their own from sending country to destination country. So this is something we are continuously promoting. And as I mentioned, the continuous stakeholder collaboration really with, IHRB, IOM, ILO, CGF, Stronger Together, SAI are something we continuously are building along the journey. And we hope really we can all find a pathway that we can share with the recruitment agency and supplier that there's nothing different. We are all doing the same thing, right? And I think echoing actually what CGF was mentioning yesterday, certification should not be the end goal. It's a pathway. So we do want to showcase that all the recruitment agency or supplier who is on their journey, they need to be recognized and have the visibility. So I think this is also another important element that we are trying to promote. Now, just briefly want to show you there are some elements, and I think you can hear from me, there are really some repeating keywords in what I've been talking about. So some of the key elements that we see that you just heard from me, engaging with government in sending country and receiving country. By that, actually, in the next slides, I will be also showing you, we try to organize workshop in sending country and destination country. So actually last month, I believe April, actually, we were here in Kuala Lumpur to hold workshop, both for our members, our suppliers, as well as recruitment agency. And we do have a session that we really break people up in different groups because we understand people probably will have fear to speak up. What are the challenge they are facing? What are the resources they need? So we are still in the process really while we are walking our program, but we are adjusting really all these feedback we receive from different stakeholders. I think the second half of this year, we are hoping to engage more government as well as recruitment agency from sending country as well. So this is definitely something we are working important for our current RRP 2.0 program. I think the second piece is nomination process, which by that, I mean, RBA now is focusing more on supporting our member really to nominate the recruitment agency. And as you know, as an industry alliance, I think our strength is how we can have a better leverage. So if one company are nominating the recruitment agency, it's hard. But when we have more company are sharing the same recruitment agency, then the leverage is bigger. So in this scenario, RBA is playing a crucial role of mapping out and facilitate really among the members on nominate recruitment agency to join recruitment agency capacity building program or the certification program. I think the third piece is equivalency framework. So in the first phase, actually, we do work a lot with IOM IRIS. So we do have an equivalency there. And then at the moment, we are working very closely with on-the-level certification program so that whenever a recruitment agency come to us, then we know like you don't need to have a duplication effort. So we are also hoping even with Stronger Together and with CGF, we are not the same industry, but there could be an equivalence that in this case, you know, the hybrid module will be something we are able to address because when there is equivalency, then this recruitment agency, when they are serving for different industry, they know the center is equivalence over there. This is going to take time, but we believe like this is really a crucial piece. The other important element you hear from me is how do we drive the market demand? I think I try to list it out something, few elements over here, and this is something we are also promoting in our program at the moment. As I mentioned, organizing the workshop both in sending country and destination country is very crucial because a lot of the time we have more engagement with member, but not the employer, supplier. So it is very important to communicate to them what is ethical recruitment, what are the tools out there, even you know, not the recruitment program, but what are the resource that you can utilize? Is it training? Is it SAQ? Is it risk assessment? When we talk about due diligence, are there toolkits we can support you? So at the moment, we are also trying to create a pathway for members, for suppliers, for recruitment agency. If you want to start on your recruitment journey, what's the pathway could look like so that it actually provides you a guidance, how to start from zero, and then how to you begin your journey. I think there's an important piece that both Jantine and CGF was mentioning is how do you really build in with your procurement team? How do you build in recruitment agency with your procurement process? I think that is something we are all trying very hard. I think we are not there yet. So we are also actually trying to, for the RBA member, we are building a responsible purchasing guideline checklist for them to embed it, procurement in their contract from the beginning process. Yeah, I think another critical issue that we heard is actually addressing the financial module, financial issue. I think at the moment we are actually starting to create a assessment funds by both RBA and our members on at least support the recruitment agency or supplier to begin their journey. So there are really multiple different elements now we are talking that we are really making efforts to overcome these challenges that I raised from the previous RRP 1.0. We are not there yet, but is still like a journey to keep moving on. I think I'll just want to spend actually the last time actually to briefly show you, I don't know whether it's clear, but I think among the workshop we had actually in April, both in Kuala Lumpur and in Taiwan, there are lots of interesting findings that we gather from both the suppliers, the members, and recruitment agency. And I think this will be very interesting because the perspectives are very different. People all need different type of support. As you can see from the members that they really need to build this. They want the supplier to build this in their procurement contract because this can be the starting point. And then there need a better communication because we also realize, again, what I mentioned at the beginning, there's a gap on the member are so into ethical recruitment program, but not the employer. Why is it? So the communication, how do you really create business case for supplier? How do you create incentive between a buyer and your employer? I think that is something we also need to look at it. I think address the cost challenge. That is something you can see not only raised by the member, but it's raised by the suppliers and recruitment agency. So how can we really create a financial module that is sustaining? I think it's something we are also looking together actually from other organizations as well. And looking from the supplier side, I think you see all kind of issue. I mean, one of the thing is, okay, as a destination country, I am willing to enroll in the ethical recruitment program, but how do I deal with sending country? Like there are so many sending country agency I'm working with, right? So how do I work with them? So I think we do realize the supplier raise like sending country recruitment agency is one of the challenge they are facing. How do we get them buy-in? And then I think the supplier also have clear expectation that there need to be some clear guidance from the local governments, you know, like guidance, really actionable, like guidance for them to operate. Because in a lot of the case, when we look at the employer, they are not big company. They are just SME, small, medium enterprise that they need guidance on really step-by-step hand-holding. Again, and I think the tools and packages support them on going on the journey. Hence, that's why we are developing, because we do realize as a supplier, they don't know these are the tools they can use to deploy the program. Lastly, I think I'll just briefly cover the recruitment agency. I know a lot of you are here. A lot of you raise different type of challenge that you do need the support from both employer and the buyer. You are hoping to have more workshop to engage, you know, with your peers, and also on the cost challenge. This is just like interesting, I think, finding that we gather and continuously using it to shape our program that we are working on. So we are trying to use really different type of outreach and communication program. As you can see, we have a responsible recruitment workshop. We have a responsible recruitment working group within RBA with like-minded members. We have a best practice sharing webinars from members will tell us, you know, they have good approach in direct hiring, how they use grievance from employment first phase, all kind of activity. I'll pause here and yeah, I'll hand it back to Marty.
Thank you so much, Shu. Very comprehensive and really interesting to hear about your different initiatives and RRP 2.0. I heard a bunch of interesting things there noted down about how do we scale to small and medium enterprises, pathways to certification, and so on. So really, really interesting to hear. I will now pass it to Hubert from Verite, who has long focused on turning labor rights risk into practical due diligence approaches and in the responsible recruitment space. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing from Hubert as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Hubert Lang. I'm here with Verite. For anyone not familiar, Verite is a forced labor nonprofit. We work with private sector companies. We work with governments to do capacity building. We do independent research. We're kind of all over the space in various ways. Today, I'm going to share a little information about Verite's recruitment cost calculator. The recruitment cost calculator is a public resource that was launched in 2022 under Walmart Foundation funding. The core of the recruitment cost calculator is actually really simple. We had a lot of drive to adopt an employer pays policy. We had a lot of suppliers interested in adopting an employer pays policy, but no one actually knew how much they were supposed to pay and what they were paying for. And so the core of the RCC is to surface the actual cost of recruitment under an employer pays model in specific corridors and in specific sectors. And so it's a tool that can be helpful for a lot of different stakeholders. The primary use of it is for suppliers to gauge that cost that they're paying in those corridors or that they should be paying in those corridors. And the idea here is that if suppliers have an actual idea of the amount they should be paying, of the actual cost to recruit these workers, it surfaces, it gives them the ability to vet the workers they've already hired, to look for risks within the workers they've already hired through those agents by comparing the actual cost of recruitment versus what they actually paid, if they paid anything. And if they're underpaying, there's a pretty high risk that the agents may have been making up for that. It also helps them proactively screen contracts with recruitment agents. And so they can have that accurate information about what are they paying for, what should they be paying, what are the market rates on some of these things. It also has use for recruitment agents themselves because it helps them point at the actual cost when agencies are trying to charge the actual cost of ethical recruitment. It gives them something to look at, to point to suppliers and say, this is within the range of what we're charging because this is what it costs. This is what you're paying for these first mile costs, for these other costs that are a little difficult for suppliers to understand and to surface. It's also available for civil society, for workers to understand some of the costs that go into it, and for brands as well. One thing that we've found people using the RCC for is suppliers, not just in their contracting with agents, but in their contracting with buyers. If they're being asked to adopt an EPP, they can point at the cost in the RCC and actually work that into their contracting and say, well, this is what it's going to cost us with our workforce needs to actually do responsible recruitment. The RCC has been around for 4 years, and it's going into an expansion phase. This year, we're adding, there's 12 corridors currently in the RCC across 6 countries. This year, the RCC is adding 5 additional corridors. By the end of the year, we'll have 16. One of those is already live on the website. We're expanding into Thailand and Taiwan, and seafood processing plants in both those countries, and then vessels in Taiwan for workers coming from the Philippines and Indonesia, I believe. So 16 total corridors by the end of the year. The 2 resources that we're expanding into that I wanted to share today are the EPP progression matrix and the EPP performance dashboard. So the progression matrix is going to be another public resource made available to suppliers as a management systems tool to benchmark their own progress in adopting employer pays. There's 3 main components of the EPP. There's benchmarking progress, there's providing actionable guidance to improve, and there's information in there about how they can demonstrate compliance with an EPP. So the EPP will be a tool where suppliers can go through and gauge their own commitment to EPP. What are they actually doing? It will create dashboards and KPIs that can kind of show them where they are in their own journey. It's also something that can be continuously updated, so they can come in and update as they improve their practices, as they make changes to their policies in their contracting arrangements. The second piece of that is the actual implementation guidance that will be within there. So this is going to be a very detailed tool across 12 subject areas, I believe, that really kind of gets into the weeds of what does it mean to implement employer pays principle to a very granular level of detail. What is not just you should have it in your contracts, but what do those contracts look like? What do you put in those agreements with recruitment agents? Where can you leverage the RCC data to do that contracting? How should you be doing intake interviews with workers? How do you verify that your implementation is working? It's a very detailed set of guidance that we make available for suppliers to track, gauge, and improve their own progress in implementing EPP. This is based on years of Verité's work. This is the kind of work Verité does with individual suppliers to do this capacity building, this capability building, to implement a strong EPP process and carry it forward. Just trying to formalize it into a tool, make it publicly available for suppliers who've been asked to adopt EPP policy, but don't have the resources they need. Maybe they haven't gone through capacity building. Maybe they don't have the resources to go through capacity building. This is a resource we can make available to them to work on that and develop their own EPP programming. The EPP Performance Dashboard will be another public resource that attempts to track implementation and the progress of EPP over time. The goal here is to bring visibility to the movement of EPP, to the adoption of EPP, and to accountability to it, because over the last several years, with all the work that's been done in this space, our experience, this was cited yesterday, I believe, our experience is that 90% of suppliers still aren't paying the full cost of recruitment. And the accountability here is we track it over time and we see if we're moving the needle on that. Are we actually making progress on this? Or is it stagnating? Is it still facing this difficulty in implementing these improved policies and reducing risk to workers? The Performance Dashboard will let users explore trends across industry level, across sectors, across geographies, and across corridors. And so the purpose of these tools kind of taken together is to, along with the RCC, kind of where can making this information available to suppliers, to brands, to agents, to civil society and workers, to kind of embed data in a clear implementation pathway to support accountability, oversight, and ethical recruitment outcomes that we're all striving towards. This is just one more tool in the toolkit amongst many of the several shared over the last couple of days. And yeah, I'll leave it there so we save a few minutes for questions.
Thank you so much, Hubert. Yeah, we're running short on time. We have about 8 minutes, but I will come back to Jantine now. So we heard about the Stronger Together 360 platform with the self-assessment, the action planning, benchmarking, visibility across business partners. But I wanted to ask you, Jantine, if you could give some more concrete examples of how the Stronger Together 360 online tool is being used by businesses alongside other interventions, training, supplier engagement, corrective action follow-up to really move from that initial policy commitment to actual change in practice. And perhaps if you've seen any good sort of practice when it comes to pushing it down supply chains to small and medium enterprises, if you have any good examples.
Definitely, and I'll try to keep it short. I think it's important to realize that the tool is just a tool, and it can be a tool sitting there without it being used. So that can never be the case. One of the ways that we have seen to be most successful is the way that we've applied it in the UK, in the consumer goods industry, where we have a collaborative program which brings together the main UK supermarkets together with their suppliers in the consumer goods industry, the agricultural sector, and those suppliers then bring in their labor providers as well. So in that program, the funders of that program are the top of the supply chain, the supermarkets, and therefore they receive benefits, but also benefits at no cost are provided to their suppliers and their labor providers. That takes away that barrier of financial cost. And I think what we've established by making this tool part of this program and the wider program, in which there is the tool which provides that reporting capability, the self-assessment, the capacity building. We provide a range of training as well on responsible recruitment, of course, recruitment fees, but also fair and equal treatment, for example, all the elements of fair work and responsible recruitment. What we have done and why the uptake has been very high in that sector is that there has been building of trust. And I think that's key, because again, a tool is just a tool, and you want people to answer that in an honest way, because then only will it make an impact. We want people to be answering that, so they are not afraid to share challenges that they might experience, because only then can it be discussed and addressed. So I think that's the key. And then the final point is that we, as an organization, provide assessments as well, which are being delivered by independent assessors. And they verify in a participatory way, so not in an audit way, but in a participatory way, by being commissioned by the actual business, the verification if what has been said in the self-assessment questionnaire is actually truthful, is triangulated and evidenced. And that has been very useful. And an example, the key example here is that it has been used by companies that recruit workers for working in the UK in the horticultural sector, but the workers are being recruited from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and so on. And so the assessment then doesn't only take place in the UK at the headquarters office. That is one part of it, the management systems level. But the assessor will actually go out to the sourcing country as well and do an assessment on the ground there as well. So that's very beneficial.
Thank you so much, Francine. Super interesting to hear about how you're going from both the headquarter level in the UK and country destination and back all the way to country of origin as well. Really useful to hear. We have about 4 minutes left, so turning to Shu now, and obviously we heard that RBA has developed, and quite frankly, being here in Malaysia, being based here, I often hear that, when we go out and talk to suppliers or even recruiters, they're often like, oh, we're connected to RBA, we're doing certain practices and so on. So that's quite exciting. But obviously, over some time, RBA has developed a range of tools, guidance to support responsible recruitment due diligence, including work on recruitment fees and supplier implementation, of course. But from your perspective, from the learnings of RBA so far, what really distinguishes a credible responsible recruitment system from one that exists mainly on paper? What do you see as the main building blocks?
Right. I think this is a question actually we've been asked by many people, and I think a lot of initiative as well, because this is how you are not only rely on audit, but this is how you really are able to change your policy and your commitment to a real behavioral change and a system change. So I think this is actually why the current RIP program is shaped, that we are really trying to promote the member, encourage the supplier. That's why we are organizing all these workshops, that when we are looking for ethical recruitment, it's not like doing audit. It's not like engage with the consultant, find out the fee, check the box. It's you need to be capable to conduct due diligence on your own. You need to understand what a worker will face, what type of risk from sending country to destination country. So this has been something we are promoting, that all the employer, the suppliers need to be capable of, conducting this. And besides this, then coming back, whenever you are not only doing audit, but when you are enrolled in the ethical recruitment program on this journey, do you really have a worker-centric grievance, like worker feedback system that can support it? This is something like we've been also trying to engage with the employer, with the recruitment agency, because a lot of the time, actually, we are seeing, I'm just talking about probably the case in Taiwan, is most of the employer, they are using recruitment agency, and then they think all the responsibility is on recruitment agency. Whenever workers submit any grievance, go to find the recruitment agency. It's not me as an employer. So I think there needs a very long-term journey to really hand-holding of how do we really change your concept? How do we really change? Even you have a process, you have a policy, you have a really nice human rights due diligence report on ethical recruitment, but can you really change your company to build up a process that everyone has a awareness of there is a risk there, and how do we identify, how do we remediate, how do we really respond? Again, I think we are not there yet. That's why we are trying a lot of using different tools to promote. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shu. Very interesting hearing about processes and building that over time, that it doesn't change overnight. I think that's very important. We have 30 seconds for a final question for Hubert. Keep it short, please, because otherwise the organizers will not be happy with me. But I wanted to ask about, the Fair Hiring Toolkit, Responsible Sourcing Tool can help better understand risks. But where do you see the biggest disconnect between better risk diagnosis and better outcomes for workers?
Yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing challenge, I think, for everybody. We have plenty of tools for identifying, for tracking, for gathering data, for collection of where are the risks, but putting those into practice, that's the challenge. I think all of the tools that we shared here today are efforts to kind of operationalize those findings and actually remediate and address them. It's kind of the core challenge, and it's unfortunately not something I can answer in 0 seconds remaining. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hubert. And with the alarm clock beaming here, I just want to say thank you to all the panelists here, to Hubert, Shu, Jantine for sharing today. It's been really great. Hopefully the audience has learned something. And yeah, thank you all for listening, both in the room and online. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. So for the next session, also a short session, 30 minutes, we'd like to welcome Rakesh Ranjan and Ben Bailey, Director of Programs at Mission to Seafarers, who will be discussing seafarer recruitment fees. And we hope there will be some time for questions as well. Thank you.
This is more conversational, so I'm just trying to find the best posture for me to start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very important session, I think. And if you are thinking you are not connected with this issue, I request you to pay attention for next 20-25 minutes. You will feel you are part of this entire conversation. And I cannot think of anyone else better than Ben Bailey. He's Director of Operations Director of Programs from Mission to Seafarers. So we'll try to discuss something, a topic which is very important. From IHRB, we have a shipping and oceans program. We work around seafarers recruitment fee. We have been working on this issue since last almost a decade now, and most of our work has been around looking into seafarers recruitment fee and connecting with the stakeholders, specifically business, on this. So before I give you a brief overview of the issue, I request Ben if you can tell us more about his work and also Mission to Seafarers.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. It's really good to be with you again this year. So the Mission to Seafarers is one of the world's largest providers of port-based welfare services. We work in 200 ports across 50 countries. And this year, we're celebrating our 170th anniversary. So we were founded in the UK, and we exist, we're connected to the Church of England, but we exist to support seafarers and their families through a variety of different pathways. So in an average year, we will probably board around 30 to 40,000 merchant vessels across the world, and we'll support around 400 to 500,000 seafarers and their families through a variety of pathways. That can be anything from sort of basic mental health and well-being, right the way through to supporting them should they have been abandoned or they have some other kind of labor abuse that they need support for.
Thank you, Ben. And if I can briefly discuss about the persistent challenge we all face about recruitment fee. So IHRB has done 2 rounds of surveys in 2023 and 2024. We did this survey in collaboration with Turtle. Turtle is a maritime recruitment platform. They are ethical recruitment platform. So very interesting. I'll share some data from that survey. It talks about out of the responses we received, 31% of seafarers they have been asked to pay the recruitment fee, and among this 31%. 74% actually paid the fees. And very interestingly, and this is something we all need to think about, among those workers, those seafarers who paid the fees, 80% of them never complained about the payment. So the persistence and the reality of recruitment fee among seafarers is this much. And if I look, like briefly give you some data around the amount of that recruitment fee. This can be any amount, to be very honest. And many of the workers we discussed, we talked with, they mentioned they have paid more than 10,000 US dollars for a job at sea. If you think about 10,000, that's like they may not be earning $10,000 in their entire contract period, but they pay this much of amount. And to be very honest, and slightly, if we can differentiate between workers, land-based workers and seafarers, for seafarers, we have Maritime Labor Convention 2006. MLC is a very important convention for any country, and currently this MLC has been adopted by more than 100 countries. Let's say example, Malaysia, India, Philippines, everyone has ratified MLC. And MLC very clearly mentioned the workers should not be paying for anything other than 3 mandatory documents which make them qualify to get the job, which is like passport, sailor's book, or their capacity development, their training program, which they have to do to become eligible to be a seafarer. So this creates lots of dependence, lots of sociological, socioeconomic impact. Families suffer. They have to take a loan. In fact, when we were discussing last year with 2 seafarers, they mentioned they have to sell their jewelry, sell their loan, sell their property. And this creates a vicious cycle of poverty for them. It's not something, it's like one time. It's like a regular impact they have. And after that also, they face lots of problems. So if I can start with our discussion, if I can ask first question, we often talk about these fees, and sometimes, like we all know workers are paying, but there's also a reality. Sometimes cost may not always appear as clear placement fee. This may be hidden in different parts of the recruitment processes. Sometimes they pay before they even reach the recruitment placement agency. So from your work with seafarers, where are the main recruitment cost risks appearing today? And if I quickly add, where do these costs typically arise in the recruitment journey?
Well, as you say, there is international legislation which is supposed to protect seafarers, and I think, certainly by and large, in the top tiers of the industry, it probably does. As you also say, though, these kind of charges come at any particular time, but particularly at the start. So when the seafarers are looking for the job in the first place, and as you said, many of them will be expected to pay something, and that could just be a small administration charge. We've had stories of seafarers who've told us that they've handed over all of their documentation to be photocopied, to be registered, to be scanned, etc. And then in order to get that documentation back, the administrator will say to them, well, look, you can get it back undamaged if you give me $100 or if you give me $50 or whatever it might be. And I'm sure in many of your wider sectors that, those types of stories will be very familiar. But equally for those seafarers who are looking to get that job, it's worth remembering that for the average salary that a seafarer earns, they are supporting up to 14 members of their family and their extended family. That's particularly true in the Philippines. And so, families will club together. They will send kind of the brightest and the best to maritime school to then go on to have a career at sea. And so there is a significant pressure on that individual. And if they can't get the job, then it's very common, sadly, in certain parts of the world where a local agent will say, well, if you go to the end of the road and there is a bank there and there is a favorable rate for seafarers wanting loans, etc., and they will then take out a loan at an extortionate rate of interest, compounded, of course, and then that seafarer will start the job already in significant amounts of debt. And obviously that gets worse if something should happen whilst they're on that journey.
Thank you, Vera. In fact, when we had workshop with some of the seafarers, and we had workshop with the MTS in 2024-25, and we had discussion with a number of seafarers. And most of the seafarers talks about they pay before they even know where exactly they are paying. Sometimes they pay to their relatives also, sometimes to their friends, and they may not be even part of the recruitment chain. They're somewhere else. And in fact, I was also trying to understand from MTS work with families and the family support or work you do. And most of the time, these seafarers, they take loan and leave. And most of the households suffer because of these recruitment fee. So if I can bring this issue, why, we need to understand this. And from your work, from your MTS work with households and families, what impacts these recruitment costs have on families, households, especially when they borrow these loans?
Yeah, well, as I say, for many families that are sending seafarers to a career in the maritime industry, it's more a kind of family economic strategy rather than, particularly. I mean, obviously there are some seafarers that have a love of the ocean, about seeing the world, and all that other kind of good stuff that goes with the excitement of working at sea. But for other seafarers, it's an absolute decision in order to support their families. And I've lost count the number of times over the last 20 years that I've been working in this space that seafarers have said to me, I'm doing this because I don't want my children to have to do and spend up to a year away from home and not necessarily have any shore leave, and absolutely potentially run the risk of being abandoned or find some other form of exploitation or be, caught up in some kind of geopolitical event. So the pressure on the family is very, very real. We often, as I say, have families that will come to us seeking support because if a ship has been abandoned and there is a loan that's been taken out, then, those loan payments don't stop. And, sometimes the families don't even know how much debt the seafarer has got themselves into in order to be able to go to sea. So the pressure on that family, in addition to, I suppose you could say, the everyday issues of the isolation, family, seafarers missing birthdays, funerals, all those other kind of social events and social milestones of life can be a very real and a very trying circumstance for them and for their loved ones, particularly when you're dealing with such a large extended family as they are.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you also bringing for the issue of abandonment. And I understand now this is one of the very important issues we are facing today. And I was looking for some data yesterday when I was preparing for this session. In fact, in the last 10 years, 1,300 ships have been abandoned. More than 1,300 ships have been abandoned. And in 2025 alone, 410 ships have been abandoned as per ITF data, and 6,000 seafarers abandoned in total globally. And like very connected to what I do in my profession also. Among these 1,000 seafarers are only from India. So 1,000 Indians, almost like 18% of seafarers. And most of these things are, as it reflects, is around GCC, Gulf also. So I'd like to bring your work around Gulf also and around abandonment also. Because I was looking at data, highest is Turkey, by the way, it's like 61 ships are abandoned in Turkey, but the UAE is 54 and Saudi Arabia is 21, followed by Egypt. India is also there with 16, I think ships are abandoned there. So from a responsible recruitment and due diligence perspective, looking from what should companies do to identify abandonment risk earlier, and how can companies ensure that seafarers are not left without wages, support, or repatriation?
There's no doubt that seafarer abandonment is now at a crisis level across the industry. So as you've just heard those numbers, 2023, there was around 130 odd cases of abandonment. Last year, there's 410. The numbers are getting worse and worse and worse every year. And I think already we're on kind of track, for want of a better term, that records will be broken again this year. And it is extremely, extremely disturbing. For many of the seafarers that we support across particularly the GCC, so we have an agreement that we work with the Federal Transport Authority in the United Arab Emirates, and we provide a lot of support to those seafarers who are quite literally left on board ships without food, without water, without oil to run their generators. It's warm here, it's even hotter in the UAE, and it's only going in one direction in terms of the temperature. We will be sending food out to those ships, we'll be sending water out to those ships and oil to try and keep the generators running. And of course, we work very closely with the International Transport Workers Federation, etc. Many of those types of vessels, and sadly we are seeing it, these types of abandonments happen in pockets, geographical pockets. And so, yes, the Middle East generally, and particularly in the Gulf, is a problem. But there are, over 120, 130 cases, I think, at the moment in Europe, 60 of which are in Turkish waters. And so, these are very often not ships necessarily that will be going from, say, Singapore to Southampton. They may often be dealing on fairly localized routes. So the challenge for companies particularly is not necessarily to, is not to forget that just because you are, transporting cargo from Singapore to Jebel Ali in Dubai, you then have a responsibility to audit that chain to ensure that when your cargo is then decanted onto feeder vessels, then of course, making sure that those seafarers are properly supported. Looking at the flag of the vessel, there are certain flag registries, which ships are come under that international legislation when they're sailing. And of course, we have seen in the last couple of years the rise of fake registries, in addition to what's widely known as the so-called shadow fleet, where these vessels are operating internationally, but often they're under sanction, but they're operating without proper insurance, without proper safety checks, without a proper due diligence. And so there's a real risk there for companies to ensure that their cargoes are not being transported on those vessels, but also that they're trying wherever possible to understand the seafarers working on those ships and what the risks might be. The other thing I would say is that certainly from my experience in the Gulf is that many seafarers, and you highlight that many of them are disproportionately from India and Pakistan, they knowingly and willingly choose to work on these vessels. So they know from their perspective, it's easier for them to get a job. They may have paid to get that job, but they know that they won't be up against as much international competition for other jobs that are available. And so for us, a lot of it is actually working with those seafarers and their families to show them what good looks like. And of course, you've done a lot of work in that area at the IHRB, and so has the Sustainable Shipping Initiative and others. And it's really important that we try and give seafarers the tools to be able to make better decisions for themselves.
Actually, and then the issue of dark fleets and all these ghost ships the issue has become very important today, also because of this ongoing conflict. And I also wanted to bring if I'm like understanding these conflicts from seafarers' perspective, there is a chain of vulnerability when these kind of conflicts started. So basically, we are talking about seafarers who are already debt-ridden. Then sometimes they choose these dark fleets. Sometimes they choose these like problematic ships where like their license problem and all the issues. And then eventually they get abandoned, and then the chances of abandonment further increases because of these crises and conflicts. So I'm just trying to understand from you, if I have to look into companies' role in that, and how should companies or a crewing agency and other maritime actors can strengthen their duty of care during these conflicts, especially considering the heightened security situations.
Yeah, everybody knows how difficult it has been, particularly with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz of recent months. And there have been around 20,000 seafarers that have been stranded in the Arabian Gulf since the crisis began, around 10,000 of whom kind of live and work in and around that region on a permanent basis. It's been actually pretty remarkable, I think, to see that for those more international types of vessels, we've seen a far greater level of care and due diligence by those major ship owners and by cargo owners particularly. I've had several of them contact me over the time asking what more they should be doing. And many of those seafarers that are working on the international vessels, they were able to do crew change. And in most cases, certainly off the coast of the UAE, food was going out, and stores were still being provisioned, etc. Salaries were still being paid. My fear now, as we sort of enter this even more, I would say, to some extent, unsettled period where, one day the straits might be opening, ships might be able to leave. The next minute, we're seeing that they're being attacked or, they're collateral because of missiles falling out of the sky, etc. That sort of on-off approach is potentially going to lead to more abandonments and more risk. Particularly in sort of the lower tiers of the industry. I always kind of say semi-jokingly that, my job involves dealing with the good, the bad, and the very bad. And I think to some extent at this moment, I'm particularly worried about the very bad elements of the industry because there will be some owners and actors that are specifically operating in certain regions who will just decide to walk away. And the implication on those seafarers, and as I say, many of them are just stranded with nothing, will be very, very severe indeed.
I do agree with you. And then responsibility prospects, and then also looking at some of the initiatives we can bring in to support seafarers. And I would like to bring here, IHRB has recently launched a toolkit to support ship owners and how they can provide better protection to seafarers and how they can avoid these instances of recruitment fee payment. So if I can quickly share with you about the toolkit which we have developed. I request everyone if you can scan the QR code. This is very simple four web pages. You can go there. It's very, in a very brief manner, it mentions 5 steps for businesses to adopt to protect workers, to support workers, and also to avoid any instances of recruitment fee payment in their supply chain. So this is the website. I request all of you to kindly go through it. Ben, if I can again bring in this issue about tools and guidance is usually we all provide to seafarers and the companies. For example, IHRB is this toolkit, or ITF has a guidance, or Crew Connect, RightShip. RightShip has also guidances. MSCN had different materials. ICE1 has some guidances also. So how these tools and guidances can be used by businesses to protect workers?
Well, obviously, we're looking at trying to provide a framework and some space where there are these questions. I've been very surprised, I suppose, and I shouldn't be after 20 years, just still how unknown and invisible the maritime industry and therefore the seafarer is to the world. You know, it's very easy if you're off the coast of Singapore to look out and you see hundreds and hundreds of ships. But of course, on every single ship, there could be 20 people. And so we see ships, we don't necessarily see people. And one of our big messages is always not to forget the human and the people that are working on board those vessels, and to understand the risks that they have. So there can never be enough guidance, I think, is probably what I would say. And certainly toolkits like the one that IHRB have produced does provide that space and that framework for companies to start asking those questions. But I think the overriding message of that, though, in all of these types of guidances is not just to take an agent's word for it, not just to take a ship owner's self-assessment as word for it. We've done a lot of work in recent years with IKEA, and they have come to our centres, for example. They've gone out ship visiting with us. They've spent time listening and meeting seafarers and really trying to understand what issues they face. Dan and the team at Verite, they came to our centre in Baltimore last year and spent more time. And I think just making sure that we have space to hear a worker's voice, that's a real powerful moment. And something which I think, you know, for all the guidance that is there, which is absolutely vitally important, we have to also, as part of that, include the voice of the migrant worker, and in this case, the seafarer.
I do agree. And then for this toolkit, I request everyone to review it. And also, if you are willing to know more about this, you can contact us. You can let us know your observation, your inputs. I always ask this question to all the panelists, and I have same question to you also.
Don't.
So, if a company wants to act immediately, what are the first practical steps it should take after reviewing this toolkit? What should be the first practical steps?
Number one is recognize that seafarers are carrying your cargo. I know it sounds obvious, but considering what I said about 3 minutes ago, we have to remember that seafarers are not like airline workers. You know, when any of us are standing in immigration waiting to get our passport stamps, and we see, you know, cabin crew just come by and they swan past and they jump the queue and they go straight through. That is not like that for seafarers. In most cases, they arrive in ports which are pretty hostile. They're certainly very inhospitable. And there are certainly risks that can be presented or that present themselves when they are in that space. So really understanding that there are workers carrying your cargo and mapping that journey. Where do they come from? Who is the agent? Is the ship owner, you know, a big responsible owner which is actually doing all of its own recruitment, is doing all of its own management? Or actually, is it one ship owner that may own, you know, 30 or 40 ships, but that has then been chartered out to another company? The crew are then being chartered by another company, you know, and so making sure that you properly understand who the various actors are involved in the deal and involved in the transportation. And also making sure that you have an opportunity to look at those contracts, understanding whether or not it's a vessel that's covered by, the IBF and has an ITF agreement on board it, for example, a union agreement, where of course there is better protection for those seafarers. And if something goes drastically wrong, then of course the ITF can and will step in. And I think I would just say again, don't underestimate the opportunity of asking the people on board. Don't expect them necessarily to tell you everything that you want to know immediately. I've lost count again the number of times I've stood in front of seafarers and asked 100 questions, and they look at me like I'm an alien, and they don't necessarily want to answer anything because they don't necessarily have that trust immediately. But working through third parties like ourselves, like Stella Maris, like iSwan, like all the other agencies that do what we do, we can go in and ask those questions on your behalf. And I have to say, again, the number of companies that have said, if only we'd known, then actually we would have taken different steps. And they've now factored in the responses they get from seafarers as part of their chartering or as part of their contracting arrangements. So it's really, really important. And there are a number of things that you can do, which obviously are set out in the toolkit behind me.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. So I have a minute or two. I'll quickly mention about one initiative, and I think that may interest to companies and also stakeholders in the room. IHRB has recently established something called Action Group to eliminate recruitment fees from the supply chain. So do let us know if you want to know more about the Action Group. We have a number of companies as a participant of the Action Group. This is very informal space for companies to take part, to connect with us. Some of the participants of Action Group are in the room, but also if you want to know more, you can anytime write to us. MTS and IHRB, we both are part of that Action Group. We'll be very happy to provide any information and support you need. So, Ben, coming back to you, this was very helpful, very informative. We learned a lot. I think one message is very much very clearly coming out from this discussion is the recruitment fee is not something you can easily understand or easily come to know about after you just talk with any, if you are talking with only agency or only one stakeholders, the cost may be hidden, the fees are hidden. You need to go through the entire supply chain. You need to understand the hidden cost, pre-recruitment cost. Then only we can know exactly what is the intensity, what is the amount, and how much actually workers are paying. And a very practical solution is consider that seafarers and workers have paid recruitment fee, and then eliminate people who have, remove those people who have not paid. So under considering there is a payment of recruitment fee in the supply chain is very basic and very necessary understanding or consideration we should have. So thank you, Ben, for your time, and I hope it was very helpful for others. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ben and Rakesh, for this very grounding session. We are now going to break for lunch, so you have an hour, and we'll meet back here right at 1:30 for our last 3 sessions of the day. And then we'll also have a workshop led by Julia and Carmen on disability. So we'll actually be talking about disability a little bit this afternoon for the first time at the forum, rights of migrant workers with disability. And then Julia and Carmen will lead a workshop on AI, risks around recruitment and AI. So we hope to see you back in 1 hour. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.
Hello, and